Hello, and welcome to Open Wounds Podcast. I'm your host, Candice. This podcast is about healing the wounds that you can't see and leading a revolution against oppressive systems that keep them open. We're going to talk about really practical tools for managing complex PTSD, as well as dive into relevant current day topics that make healing a daily practice. You can follow us at IG at Open Wounds Podcast or watch on YouTube at Open Wounds Podcast. Please rate, review, like, subscribe, all the things, and enjoy this week's episode. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Open Wounds Podcast. I'm going to have a solo episode today. We're going to talk about a reality TV show. So if that's not your jam, I know we're kind of all over the place in topics on the show, but it's something that came up because I was watching it because of someone who started to come onto the show. So if this isn't your jam, you can skip until next time. Thank you everybody for tuning in. But today's solo episode, we're going to talk about the Bravo TV show, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Now, I will preface this with, I have literally never watched this show. I've never watched any of the franchise. The Bravo show I used to watch Rachel Zoe's show back in the day. And I watched Jeff Lewis's Flipping Out and all the iterations Jeff Lewis has had since then. So I'm familiar with the Bravo format to a degree, but I do think like Rachel Zoe's show and Jeff Lewis's show were a little bit of a different format than this. I'm learning now as I'm watching, the producers are different. So you're getting a different experience with this reality franchise of the Real Housewives. So I have been an Amanda Frances fan for quite some time. I actually met Amanda Frances long time ago when she dated my brother in Oklahoma. And it was a very brief meeting. When she was reintroduced into my life, I'll start this way so that you guys can kind of see the thread. She was reintroduced into my life when my brother was like, hey, you remember that girl I used to date? She's really rich now and she has a bunch of books and stuff. And I was like, what? So I went over and I looked at her stuff, and initially I was like, oh, I don't know if I don't like this, because when you haven't done the work to reflect on yourself and figure out your shadow and why you're being triggered about things, people will activate you, as they like to call it on the show. So when I first stumbled upon her stuff, I was a little bit turned off. She can be polarizing, which I think is part of her branding, but I wasn't ready. It took me about a year and a half of like doing some internal work, some shadow work and processing through another program before I realized, like, when I'm getting activated by someone else, that's a me problem and not a them problem. Like, if there's people, as we talk about this show, that I don't like, that's a me problem that I don't like them. That's not their problem. That's my problem. And they're triggering something in me that I haven't healed or haven't worked through or haven't gone through. We also had an episode about that a long time ago about shadow work and projection. So if you want to go back and listen to that, that might help you understand what I'm talking about here. But anyway, I started in Amanda Frances's work, I think in 2021, 2022. Is when I started reading her stuff. I actually am a very slow adapter to these kinds of things. I proceed with caution when it comes to any type of teacher or program or methodology or philosophy. Because of how I was raised, leaving the church and all the brainwashing that comes with evangelicalism, and because of my parents and the way I was raised with them, I have a lot of trust issues. People really need to prove to me before I will buy into their stuff, hook, line, and sinker. So when I first approached Amanda's stuff, I was like, let's check this girl out. She clearly has success. Because I knew her and I knew where she came from, I'm like, this is monumental. Like, really, it truly is monumental, the success she's created for herself. Especially since she created most of this success before she was even in a relationship with her current partner, Eddie. So it's very clear she got here on her own 2 feet. That was super impressive to me. The second thing that I found super impressive by her work was that she had some really difficult things come up and she was able to process through them and still keep the faith, so to speak, in her methods. And I'm not trying to make this whole episode about Amanda, but she's the only reason why I watch the show, so we're going to talk about it. But Amanda lost a child, a newborn, when her twin sons were born. One of the boys didn't make it. And so for me, I had dabbled in manifestation before, like the Abraham Hicks stuff and Think and Grow Rich and the power of positive thinking. But I kept bumping up this thing of like, life can sometimes be really shitty and really suck. And I would lose the faith. I'd be like, well, I couldn't manifest this thing. This terrible thing happened to me. I threw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. But because I was able to see she had a really horrible thing happen to her and she still kept the faith. She was still like, I still believe this. It still works. Just because I lost my child doesn't mean that these principles and these tools, these skills that I've developed are invalid. Yes, a terrible thing happened. And yes, I still believe. And I found that super intriguing and super inspiring. Another person that I follow that does a lot of teaching calls it the contrast, where like there's a yin and yang, there's an up and a down, there's like the good and the bad to every experience we have, right? And the philosophy is if everything was perfect and good all the time, how would you know to appreciate when things were actually good, right? So the fact that she was able to take the loss of her son and still believe in this work and still implement it and keep strong, like, I was impressed. Because so many people, if they lost a child, that would be the end. They would go off of social media, you wouldn't hear from them anymore, they'd pack it up and they'd figure out something else to do because they would be so shaken by the fact that this thing had happened to them. But she's able to stand through it all, which is very impressive to me. So that's how I got into Amanda's stuff. And so I get why these women on this show are so triggered by her, because I used to be triggered by her. Ironically, when I started to have some up levels and some successes in my business, and I was able to quit working my part-time job and go full in on my business, I had people asking me like, what's going on? How'd you do that? And I was like, it's Amanda Francis. You got to read her book. And several of them were like, ooh, no, I can't stand her, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It's working for me. You figure out what works for you. Like, you'll figure it out on your own, or something will come to you in time when you're ready for it. So that's how I know Amanda Francis. That's the only reason why I'm watching this show. I could give two craps about all these other women. I kind of knew internally, like just my gut reaction, that these reality TV shows, most of them are super toxic. They're contrived. They thrive on conflict. I mean, just the meme with the lady pointing at the white cat, you get like what this is about. This is just manufactured drama for the sake of entertainment, which I personally feel that's a little unethical. And I'll get into that with Andy Cohen and the other producers of the show as I get through this episode. But I really found I was like not interested at all. But when Amanda was like, I'm going to be on it, I was like, I will watch, because I'm ride or die with Amanda. And because I wanted to see how she handled it, because I knew it was going to be a shit show. I knew even if people liked her, that there was going to be something that was going to happen and she was going to have to kind of traverse this. And I wanted to see how she worked through this, right? So the first thing I want to say is I get that the production company is a big part of the problem and the big part of why this is so toxic. And Andy Cohen in the reunion said, I want to manifest conflict. So right there, you get what he wants: conflict. He's going to focus on it. He's going to expand it. And now that I've kind of figured that out, it makes sense why these women feel like they need to stir the pot and start stuff, because they think that's what he wants. And they're basically performing to please him and to keep their job, right? They want to stay on the show. They want the income that they've got from this job. And I can't fault them for wanting income and for wanting to be on TV. Whatever. That is what it is. I can fault Andy and I can fault the production company 24/7, night and day, for the way that they approach this. And the fact that they are creating a toxic, unhealthy, and verbally aggressive, whatever you want to call it, environment. It's not good all the way around. Because they are profiting off of suffering, basically, at the end of the day. Let's make these women miserable. Let's make these women hate each other. Let's make these people get in fights, and we're going to make money off of it. The point being here is if you look at other reality TV shows, the entire network of HGTV is a completely different mindset, a completely different frame of reference. They make lots of money, they have lots of viewers. So you can create a TV show that doesn't solely revolve around conflict and drama. This show is like if Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous had a baby with a soap opera, because so much of it is just like nonsense, right? Like, why are the producers picking out these storylines and focusing on them? Because there's so much that happens that they're editing out and it doesn't make the cut, right? So Baskins is one of the producers and Andy Cohen, and I blame them for this. And I think gay white men are part of this problem. There is a long-standing history of gay white men reproducing the patriarchy to their own benefit. They are implementing these things and using them, and they're not aware of how this impacts people of minority classes or people, women or whatever, right? You think of like the gay best friend, but that's not what's happening here at all. This is a toxic relationship. This is like, I completely do not stand behind what Andy Cohen and the people at Bravo are doing with this franchise. I think it's nonsense. So with that being said, like, Andy Cohen's not the only gay white man who's using the patriarchy to profit off of it. If you look at Peter Thiel, I could go on and on and on. There's people who, yes, because they're in the LGBTQ category, you would think they're an ally. You would think they're pro-feminism. You would think that they're pro-women's empowerment and equality. No, they are out there looking for number one. And so you got to learn how to spot that when you see it. And Andy Cohen's a perfect example. I also had heard he's a Zionist. I don't know if that's true or not, but not a fan. The second thing I wanted to talk about is because these women are basically trained to focus on being, you know, petty and cunty or whatever you want to call it, like that's where the storyline's going to go. So it makes complete sense that when these new characters come on, there's drama and there's nitpicking and there's fighting and there's all these things. The other thing, what you'll see is there's like 3 levels to this, right? So there's the viewers enabling the patriarchy is what I'm trying to say. So when the viewers are writing in, because you have like whatever, there's a thing you can submit questions to for late, the after shows and all that stuff. So the viewers are toting the water for the patriarchy, as Kimberly Rose Pendleton talks about. They're basically reinforcing the misogynistic standards onto the women on the show, right? And so because most of the women on the show have been on there for so long, they're used to it. They're just gobbling it up and spitting it back out, right? So you have the viewers writing in, oh, Amanda's emasculating her husband. Oh, that's blah, blah, blah. He's a freeloader, blah, 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 blah. That's the patriarchy. Those women writing in to complain and criticize and judge Amanda for her relationship with her husband, which they don't know anything about. If they wanted to know, you can go watch Amanda's Instagram. She's on there every day. Eddie's on there all the time. They talk very openly about this. Eddie is a very secure man. He's not threatened by this. My husband and I were talking about this the other day. He would be thrilled beyond measure if I started making way more money than him. You know why? Because his life would become easier. If I'm taking more of the burden financially in the relationship, guess what? That takes it off of his shoulders. The only men who are going to have a problem with this are insecure and misogynistic, and they want traditional gender roles. They want to go back to Mad Men. They're MAGA, whatever. It's a thing, right? And so you see these women that are writing into the show reinforcing this standard. So that's level 1. People writing in need to get it together. You'll notice the reviews and the comments. People in the millennial sphere tend to do this less because we are looking at life through a different paradigm. I'm on the cusp of millennial and Gen X, so I can kind of see both sides. But most of the women on the show are Gen X or older. So they're still perpetuating the patriarchy. The viewers are also probably in that demographic, perpetuating the patriarchy by shaming and guilting and saying horrible things to women who own their success, who are proud of what they do, and they're not going to shut up, and they're not going to shy away, and they're not going to back down. The second layer is Andy and the team, the producers, whoever is on that team, filtering the questions and choosing those questions. You could have chose, there's thousands of questions I'm sure that come through, and you guys chose to focus on those questions, right? So there's the patriarchy again. They're using this like, oh, the fragile, your husband's poor ego. God forbid you make more money than him. Oh dear. Seriously. If this was a cast of all men, this would never, ever happen, right? Such bullshit. So the producers need to take a look in the mirror, because if you want your show to mature and grow and come to the future with the rest of us who actually have progressive views and want equality, you need to change it up. Like, you're going to lose your viewership, because as these old boomers that watch it right now and the Gen X people move along in life, you need new viewers, and they're not going to watch this stuff because it's garbage, right? So that's the other thing I wanted to say, is this is a generational thing, I think, and it's also a brainwashing thing and a performative thing, right? So then you have the third layer, which is the women on the show performing the patriarchy against Amanda and against each other and to the audience and for Andy, which is also a form of like, we're all sitting here making the producers happy and dancing like little monkeys for them, right? So there's so many layers here of people. Basically, I'm just like, are you kidding me? It's the year 2026. How are we still doing this, people? Right? I cannot stand by it. Like, I will not watch. If Amanda leaves the show, I'll never watch it again. Fine. If she does, I'm not sure if I'll watch it. It depends. But I just so disappointed and like just so frustrated and so kind of over it with this patriarchy stuff. It's a show of all women. You know how cool this show could be? This show could be women doing amazing things. I would love to hear how they run their businesses. I would love to hear what their financial goals are, what their travel goals are, what they're planning to do. Like, I would love to see camaraderie among the women unifying together to empower more women, like Amanda actually does. Bose is claiming she does that by basically giving away her program. Cool, Bose, but when you're a cunt to everyone else on the show, I'm not going to go look at your website and check out your program, because I see who you are. You don't actually support other women. You're just giving lip service, right? So it's just so immensely frustrating to see that here we sit in 2026, and this is still what's being produced and aired on the television for women to consume. It's a product made mostly by women, mostly for women, and this is what they're feeding us. This is what they're shoving down our throats, right? So I'm going to stop it there. I could go on and on about the behavior of the women towards Amanda, because they do pile on her. They do criticize her for the exact same thing they do. I mean, Erica might have had a valid point about planting seeds where it could build resentment later, but that's between Amanda and her husband. That is none of Erica's concern. All these women, when they had their turn to talk, Amanda didn't interject her opinion all up in their stuff. If she was called upon, she responded. She apologized to Dorit, whatever. But these women, Rachel, Erica, Bose, Dorit, were all just jumping on Amanda. It's not your turn to talk, people. No one asked for your opinion. That's the other thing that drives me crazy about this show. No, I can't stand it. It's like, no one asked for your opinion. If I want your opinion, I will come ask you for it. I'm talking, you're interrupting me and inserting your opinion, which is mostly garbage patriarchy, back on me. Know your place, shut up, be quiet. The whole thing Erica said about us being old. Guess what? You are old, and that's why you're perpetrating the patriarchy and misogyny onto other women. You need to take a look in the mirror. If you want to get with the times, if you want to keep up with what you're doing, you need to change, you need to evolve, because the patriarchy's on its way out. It's on its last leg, and this stuff isn't going to stand. So that's all I have for today. I have to go to an appointment. I hope you all have a great week. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next time.